8:33 in the morning on Independence Day, and we are live from the KJLH 1-800-THE-LAW 2 studio, broadcasting the Town Hall edition of the Front Page. Our topic today, Game Changers, the impact of protest and pandemic on sports. And we welcome your calls, 520-KJLH, 520-5554. Right now, on the line with us, the acting director of the LA Department of Rec and Park. She's the first woman to serve in an executive role. She's responsible for the day-to-day operations of 182 park facilities. Norma Edith Garcia, thank you for checking in with us this morning.
Good morning, and happy 4th of July to you and other listeners this morning.
Yes, I appreciate you. Calls are packed. I guess, this shelter in place 4th of July is a different kind of animal. The Rec and Parks Department plays a huge role in youth sports, right? In sort of keeping
at Los Angeles County Parks and Recreation, and really all of the park and recreation agencies around the county and the country play a pivotal role in ensuring that our vulnerable youth have access to affordable, accessible youth sports. And we are the largest youth sports providers in our parks, providing the gamut of sports from basketball to, lacrosse to little leagues to soccer, a very dynamic youth sports program. And unfortunately, right as we were beginning our baseball leagues, our little leagues throughout the county, COVID and the Safer at Home order was placed. And what that did is it really closed our youth sports. Unfortunately, at this time, youth sports are still not available, and I think that it's very important to notify the parents and the youth, and we completely understand that there's so much hunger and need to get out and have some physical activity and connect back with their sports friends in the field. But at this time, our sports fields in Los Angeles County continue to be closed for sports. I can share with you in a little bit about what activities are opening, but at this point, youth sports are still not lifted by the public health order.
And we don't know when. We have no plan for reopening. At this point, it's day to day, right?
I will share with you that Los Angeles County and my team, we've been convening meetings with all of the cities and park and recreation agencies in Los Angeles County. And so we have prepared opening plans for youth sports if and when the youth sports are allowed to open up. So I will say we have plans in place. However, at this point, due to the increases in spikes of youth sports, of COVID infection cases, we are waiting for the governor's call to open up youth sports. And at this point, we do not anticipate that happening, anytime soon.
Being joined on the phone right now by a legend in LA basketball. He was a point guard for USC. He played in both the ABA and the NBA, including for the Lakers, and even coached the Clippers for a time. We're talking about Mack Calvin. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning to you, Ms. Dominique, and happy Independence Day.
Thank you. Same to you. Now, it's a crazy and incredible time, as we were talking about earlier, in terms of, athletes really speaking out and letting their voices be heard. I mean, I think about Maya Moore and her journey to help free a prisoner, opting out of a season, people taking a knee, people demanding change. How do you put this, in perspective with your journey in the NBA?
Well, I applaud the young people, Maya Moore, and certainly guys like LeBron James. I can identify with the players in the NBA, LeBron James, Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, a lot of the young players who have a platform, and they're able to utilize that platform and make a difference. A major difference from when I came up. Of course, graduating out of USC, I was the seventh African-American basketball player ever to play at USC, Long Beach Poly, growing up in the projects. And your guest that you had on, Parks and Recreation, I grew up playing at the Park and Recreation in Imperial Courts in the project. And so I was happy to hear her talk. But more importantly, during my era, we were told at USC, one, that we could not attend the Black Student Union. Two, our basketball coach didn't want us to date any of the white girls on campus. So I guess that was a form of racial discrimination. Secondly, when I played, we were only allowed to have 3 African-American players on a basketball team.
Wow. That's crazy.
It was a written law. It was not a written law, but it was a fact.
Right.
And so, and then when we would travel back south, North Carolina, Kentucky, we were not allowed to eat in the same hotel with some of our white counterparts, white players. And we had players on my team like Billy Cunningham, who is a Hall of Famer and great player at the time, who was white. Literally said, "Look, if you don't serve them, you're not going to serve us." And but basically, we were told to go to our hotel, go upstairs and order from room service, make the call down, as they would not wait on us. So there was a litany of things that really took place, and of course, that was right after the civil rights law being passed in 1964. It was like 1968 when we had the Tommy Smith, John Carlos raising of the fist. And it also was during an era where Muhammad Ali in 1967 was said he wasn't going to go and be inducted into the army. So there was a lot of uprising going on. And so we really didn't have a platform. We didn't have a voice. And we really didn't have enough African Americans to stand together, black ball players to stand together to be a voice like you have today. And I think that collectively, what is getting attention around the world is that you have famous, wealthy African American athletes that are saying no more, and that we stand for this. And they're putting their monies into the process. And so I applaud Maya Moore, for her to give up a game to help the young inmate Irons. I think that was admirable on her part. And I think that you see a lot of the ball players now standing up. But, Dominique, I will say this. And I have a lot of years on this earth, and I've been involved in professional basketball in college for over 50 years. That LeBron James will be the equal of Muhammad Ali. He has that presence. And every now and then God brings us a Martin Luther King or Emmett Till or in a bad way, but that's the face. But I think LeBron will be the face of coming of America, the changing of America. And because he has a platform and he has a litany of people that don't look like him behind him, that are major corporations that are making changes. And it's the most beautiful thing that I've seen in my time on this earth and involved in sports. What's really happening, and I think it's real. It's not surreal. It is real. And I'm happy to see this happen. I think it's going to be great for my daughter and for all the young people coming up, because this is a movement.
Absolutely. I want to put my apologies out there to Norma Edith Garcia. I said rec and parks because I'm so used to LA City. Of course, you're LA County where it's park and recs. A little confusing, but I got to make sure I get it right. We have a ton of people on the phones that would love to interact. If you guys are ready, let's go ahead and do that. Let's go to Angela calling us from Lakewood. Good morning, Angela.
Hi, good morning. I wanted to inquire with the coaches, but I guess this would also apply.
Just go ahead and put your comment forward. You have a coach.
The Parks and Rec.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm just wanting to understand in this season of pause and protest, is there a contingency plan to give not only the players but those who have had to leave their school year early, maybe a life plan, a build-up in regards to how they go about life, right? Life isn't always about the games. And in the game of life, you have to understand that you have to pivot in order to do other things in life. Is there
absolutely got it?
Is there anything on the, anything that can give them something after the buzzer?
Absolutely. So how do you prepare, how do you prepare young people, I guess, for life after sports or before sports or without sports as we are right now? And I guess, I guess this one for right now has to go to you, Mr. Calvin.
Well, thank you so much. I think I understand the question, but sports plays a major role in our society today, and certainly for young people. And I think it's more importantly that they connect with their friends and find other ways to kind of get out of the negative mindset of being at home, not having anything to do. So my guess, and I work with a ton of young people, and I might say, Ms. Dominique, that young people want to be connected. They want to be connected. That's why they're on TikTok, they're on Facebook, Instagram. They want to connect. They want to have an influence. So I would say that you find a cadre of friends, 2 or 3 friends, and you kind of form those bonds and relationships, and take this extra time that we have to build on your character, build on other areas of your life, build on your family relationship, your long-time lost friends, and that this will be over relatively soon. So I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, and if you're thinking about, while the sports are going forward, I mean, there's lots of youth sports oriented programs that also have life skills aspects to them, right? Like the Ultimate Student Athlete, like you can enroll a sports person in something like Second Call, or Brotherhood Crusade has great programs where they teach life skills as well as sports, not just one or the other. I want to ask you, Norma Edith Garcia, cities and counties, states under a lot of pressure right now with all of the money going out for COVID-19 emergency response. We could be looking at some huge cuts to educational city and county programs for young people. How do we buffer against that? How are we, how do we get through that, I guess is what I'm asking.
And that's a fantastic question. As we talk about movements to, look at reallocating resources, we've got to focus on our youth and our children. And I think that's what sometimes is forgotten, or it's easy to cut, especially during hard economic times. But they're the population that really need our investment. And I thank you so much, Mr. Calvin, for really just breaking it down. Youth need to connect. They need to socialize. And youth sports is a way to really, in the field, you learn so many life lessons. And I want to just, message to your listeners that when we're talking about budget cuts, when we're talking about redirecting resources, possibly from law enforcement, that our families, our communities need to ensure that youth sports, recreation, especially public recreation programs are available so that youth, very vulnerable, low-income youth have access to sports, and that the barrier of finances does not deter them from engaging in youth sports. And so our advocates, our communities need to ensure that park and recreation and public programs for youth are minimized and not cut, and that if there are dollars that are redirected, as many council members, as many electeds are talking about where to make investments, that advocates really talk about making sure that the investments are made in our youth and in our public recreation programs.
All right, I want to keep it moving with these callers. We have Sam calling from LA. Good morning, Sam. You are on the radio with Norma Edith Garcia and Mack Calvin, ABA, NBA, coach, all of the above.
Great. Initially I was calling to comment on the question with NFL ownership, but I'll go this vein and start with going into college sports from high school and then up to the NFL and pro sports. With regard to the ownership issue, I think we need the coaches and players of color to start lobbying Congress. Because remember, the NFL enjoys an antitrust exception. We know that that's a good old boy club up there.
Okay, so we're tight on time, Sam. So if you could condense what you're saying, it would be really helpful.
Okay, so if you start with ownership of football, lobby Congress. Moving down to college, if we get these colleges to start paying our kids so they can have a little income while they're in college, because remember, they're the engine that drives the income in college. And if that happens, then the high school coaches actually have a little more pull and can lobby. Got it.
Okay, let's have our panel go ahead and comment on what you're saying, because you're bringing up a lot of good points. I don't want to run out of time, and they can't address it. Team ownership, with all the great symbolism, lift every voice and sing, and kneeling, and teams donating to nonprofits. What about ownership? Do you want to speak to that, Mack Calvin?
Yes, I have been on both ends of it. Certainly have not been an owner. I think that if you can ask your listeners to speak into the phone, because I can barely hear.
Yeah, no, that's a technical glitch that we have. But if you need me to recap the question, I can do it. He's talking about lobbying Congress to get ownership of professional teams, forcing the players to be paid and use their leverage as economic drivers for those colleges to get a stake in these teams.
Okay, so let's look at the college area. I have mixed emotions about that, paying college players. And there's been some states that approve. I think you have a problem. So who do you designate who's going to get a certain amount of money? So if you have a Zion Williams at the University of Duke and you have like the 10th or 12th player, is that 10th or 12th player going to get the same amount of money on a monthly basis that a Zion Williams is going to get? And so I think you have some disparity there.
But all that stuff can be worked out through legislation. What we can't have is kids hungry on college campuses who are bringing in billions of dollars for universities and then, almost forced to do things that are, seem to be illegal at the moment, just, to feed themselves and their families. That doesn't seem fair.
There is a stipend. Kids, every athlete get an X number of dollars per month, $1,200-$1,500 per month. My problem I have is that I think the disparity or the unfairness of this is that if you have a student who's in cinema, who's studying wants to be an actor or an actress, and that individual can go and work on a set and make $5,000-$10,000 a month, whereas an athlete cannot do that. So I think that's.
Yep, you're talking to someone who did it. Pivoting just a moment, because we are going to have Senator Steve Bradford, who wrote, who authored that bill, championed that bill here in California to help athletes profit off their likenesses. He'll be coming on later in the show. What about ownership of teams?
Well, it's about money. And I think that if you're talking about African-American ownership, I think that's a crime that we do not have more African-American ownership in the major sports. The only one we have, to my knowledge, as an African-American is Michael Jordan, who owns 60% of the Charlotte Hornets. And then you have Mr. Marino, who owns majority of ownership of the Angels. I think that's an area that needs to change, that African-Americans should have an opportunity. LeBron, I think you'll see LeBron in the next 3 to 5 years have ownership in a major franchise. And it's going to come from Adam Silver, the same that Michael Jordan got his deal with Charlotte by David Stern. I think I think it's injustice to what we bring to the game. I think if you have the means to be able to be an owner, you should have that opportunity. Derek Jeter, I think in Miami, he's a part owner of the Miami Marlins. But that's pretty much it. And it's about money and it's about the control. But they don't want minorities at the helm of making decisions. You can play ball, but you cannot have ownership. And I think that's a terrible injustice.
In other words, shut up and dribble.
Pretty much so. But LeBron, I think, put the young lady in her place. But, I think this movement is going to change the mindset. It already has in such a short time. And I've seen a lot of movement, Dominique. I just hope that we can sustain it, which I think we will. I think that the changes that will come from getting out there to vote I think a change will come when we change laws, gun laws. My major concern as an advocate for education is that we need to change the way things are happening in the educational system. We have a major pandemic right there in our educational system, in our communities, with our black and brown young people. And as long as I'm on this earth, I'm going to continue to talk about it. I'm going to try to continue to lift my voice to make a difference. But that's where we have our young people are not graduating from high school and going on to get a skill or going on to a 4-year school.
It's a great point. Really great point. All right. Well, I just have to ask you real quick here. McCord Maker, the 5-star recruit who chose Howard University. Is this a game changer? We're talking about, an athlete choosing an HBCU, which is another way of possibly shifting, dollars, right, into black-owned institutions or institutions that super serve African Americans. What do you think of that? Is that a good sign?
Well, I've had the last two questions. How about having Ms. Garcia? And I definitely would. I have something to say on that.
Well, I'm not sure. Norma, Edith, Garcia, do you have thoughts on that? On young athletes choosing HBCUs, over other more glamorous or profitable universities in order to, support their own communities?
And I want to just echo Mack Calvin's comments in regards to our youth are making principled decisions. And I think sending a very loud message in regards to, the importance of, they know that playing sports will bring attention, will bring resources, will bring sponsorships. And that is a statement of power, a statement of empowerment. And I think I'm hoping a statement to really send a strong message about how valuable, black, Latino, people of color, athletes are making principled decisions about where they decide to go. And I'm hoping that has rippling effects in regards to college sports.
Okay. Mack Calvin, your thoughts? You said you had a couple.
Yes, very well said. Here's the problem, Dominique, is that this young kid, Maker, who has a brother that's in the NBA playing for Detroit, he's a young 7-footer out of Africa. He is a one-and-done player, meaning that he's going to play 1 year. Doesn't make any difference where he plays, whether he plays in Australia, whether he plays in the signs and play in the G League. He's rated one of the top 75 players coming out of high school. He's not ready to play at the pro level. He is playing at a small, mid-level D1 school, which is Howard. Happy to see him going to a black school. But he's going to go there to put up points. He's going to go to try to average 25, 30 points a game, show his skill set, and then he's going to declare for the draft. You can book that right now. I can tell you that's what's going to happen. He's had scholarship offers to all the major Pac-12 schools, Oregon, right, UCLA. He turned those down because he would not be the star player at those schools. He would not be able to develop any type of show off his skill set.
Got it. Absolutely. I mean, I would love to see more athletes making a statement like that, though. Up against the clock, as always. That's the life of my job. Mack Calvin, I so appreciate your taking time out to be with us this morning. Norma, Edith, Garcia, thank you so much for updating us and being here with us as well. We appreciate you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Continuing our conversation, game changers, the impact of protests and pandemic on sports. Right after this, Radio Free 102.3 KJLH.